Hi again, I am Lucky. So, today I'll be starting a new book that is Harvard Business Review's 10 Must Reads on Communication. So, this is the book in which we have top 10 articles, I would say, on communication published by Harvard Business Review. And I'm reading this book because we also have a course, written and verbal communication that is going on in our classes. So I hope it really helps me. So the first part is Change the Way You Persuade by Gary A. Williams and Robert B. Miller. It's happened to you before. So let's start it. It's happened to you before. You call a meeting to try to convince your boss and peers that your company needs to make an important move, for instance, funding a risky but promising venture. Your argument is impassioned, your logic accessible, your data bulletproof. 2 weeks later, though you learned that your brilliant proposal has been tabled, what went wrong? All too often, people make the mistake of focusing too much on the content of their argument and not enough on how they deliver that message. Indeed, far too many decisions go the wrong way because information is presented inefficiently or ineffectively. In our experience, people can vastly Okay. In our experience, people can vastly improve the chances of having their proposal succeed by determining who is the chief decision maker is amongst the executives. They are trying to persuade and then tailoring the arguments to that business leader's decision making style. Specifically, we have found that executives typically fall into one of the five decision making categories. Charismatic, can be initially exuberant about a new idea or proposal, but will yield a final decision based on a balanced set of information. Okay, so we have five major decision making categories that executives fall into. First is charismatic. It can be charismatics can be initially exuberant about a new idea or proposal, but will yield a final decision based on a balanced set of information. Next is thinkers. Thinkers can exhibit contradictory points of view within a single meeting and need to cautiously work through all the options before coming to decision. Skeptics remain highly suspicious of data that don't fit with their worldview and make decisions based on their gut feeling. Followers make decisions based on how others trusted executives or they themselves have made similar decisions in the past. And controllers focus on pure facts and analytics of a decision because of their own fears and uncertainties. Five styles span a wide range of behaviors and characteristics. Controllers, for instance, have a strong aversion to risk. Charismatic tends to seek it out. Despite such differences, people frequently use a one size fit all approach when trying to convince their bosses, peers, and staff. They argue about they argue about the case to a thinker the same way they would to a skeptic. Instead, managers should try their presentation to the executives they are trying to persuade using the right buzzwords to deliver the appropriate information in the most effective sequence and format. After all, Bill Gates does not make decisions in the same way that Larry Ellison did, and knowing that can make a huge difference. Five approaches. Executives make it to the senior level largely because they are effective decision makers, learning mostly from experience. They build a set of criteria that guides them. Each decision is influenced by both reason and emotion, but the weight given to each of the elements during decision making process can widely depend on the person. In a 2 year project, we studied the decision making style of more than 1600 executives. Okay. In 2 year project, we studied the decision making style of more than 1600 executives across a wide range of industries. Our work focused on how those people made purchasing decision, but we contended that the results have broader applicability to decision making in general. We interviewed participants about various facets of their decision making process. For instance, how strong was their desire to have others educate them about the issues involved in a particular decision? How willing were they to move beyond the status quo? How much risk were they comfortable with in making the decision? I lost my track. I have to start it again. For instance, how strong was their desire to have others educate them about the issues involved in a particular decision? Okay, so how strong was their desire to have others educate them about the issues involved in the particular decision? How willing were they to move beyond the status quo? How much risk were they comfortable with in making the decision? These characteristics and preference are often set early in a businessman's career and evolve based on experience. In other words, people have a natural tendency towards a certain style of decision making that get reinforced through successes or that changes after repeated failures. In other words, people have a natural tendency towards a certain style of decision making that gets reinforced through successes or that changes after repeated failures. Idea in brief: you call a meeting to try to convince your boss that your company needs to make an important move. Your argument is impassioned, your logic unaccessible, your data bulletproof. 2 weeks later, though you learn that your brilliant proposal has been tabled, what went wrong? It's likely the proposal wasn't appropriately geared towards your boss's decision making style. Say consultants Gary William and Robert Miller, over the course of several years, research the authors have found that executives have a default style of decision making. Okay, lost my track again. Over the course of several years' research, the authors have found that executives have a default style of decision making developed early in their careers. That style is reinforced through repeated success or changed after several failures. Typically, the author says executives fall into one of the five categories of decision making styles. Charismatics are intrigued by intrigued by new ideas, but experience has taught them to make decisions based on balanced information and not just on emotions. Thinkers are risk averse and need as much data as possible before coming to decisions. Skeptics are suspicious of data that don't fit their worldview and thus make decisions based on their gut feelings. Followers make decisions based on how others trusted executives. Followers make decisions based on how others trusted executives or they themselves have made similar decisions in the past. And controllers focus on the facts and analytics of decisions because of their own fears and uncertainties. But most business presentations aren't designed to acknowledge these different styles of detriment. Okay, so charismats are in favor of new ideas and thinkers are risk averse, skeptics are suspicious, followers make decisions on how others are making decisions, and controllers focus on facts and analytics of decision because of their own fears and uncertainties. But most business presentations aren't designed to acknowledge these different styles to their detriment. In this article, the author describes the various subtleties of the five decision making styles And how best to persuade executives from each group. Knowing executives' preference for hearing or seeing certain type of information at specific stage of the decision making process can substantially improve your ability to tip the outcome in your favor. The authors conclude. So, knowing executives' preference for hearing or seeing certain type of information at specific stage in their decision-making process can substantially improve your ability to tip the outcome in your favor. The authors conclude. Our research should not be confused with standard personality tests and indicators like Myers-Briggs. Our framework is simply a categorization of how people tend to make decision. Of course, people do not always make decisions in the same way. Much depends on situation they are in. And okay, so our framework is simply a categorization of how people tend to make decision. Of course, people do not always make decisions in the same way. Much depends on the situation they are in, but our research has shown that when it comes to making tough, high stakes choices that involve many complex considerations and serious consequences, people tend to resort to a single domain style, call it a default mode of decision making. Okay, so research has shown that when it comes to making tough decisions, high stake choices that involves complex consideration, people tend to follow a default mode of decision making. Okay, so next is the idea and practice. Five decision making styles. Consider this fictional scenario. Sales and marketing VP Mary Flood knows her company must become a more consumer focused. She recommends decentralizing her operations into regional account teams, but needs her CEO's support. Here is how she would argue her case, depending on her CEO's decision making style. Okay, so here is a table. Let me analyze it. Let me read out this table in the video only. So we have styles, decision makers characteristic, persuaders strategy and examples. So first is charismatic. So, decision makers' characteristics are easily enthralled but basis final decision on balanced information, emphasizing bottom line results. Persuader strategy focus on results, make straightforward arguments, stress proposals benefit with visual aids, use buzzwords, proven actions, easy, clear. Examples, diagrams, current organization and problems, proposed restructuring and benefits, especially improved competitiveness, explain potential challenges and risk of inaction, provides detailed reports for CEO to review post presentations. Next is thinker. Decision makers' characteristics are toughest to persuade, cerebral, logical, risk averse, needs extensive detail. Persuader strategy to it, present market research, customer surveys, case studies, cost benefit analysis, use buzzwords, quality, numbers, expert, proof. Examples, presents three different options in detail in first meeting, explains data gathering methods, presents case studies of similar restructuring, uses second meeting to fill argument gaps and recommend optimum plan, waits weeks, months for CEO's decision. Okay. Next are skeptic. Decision makers' characteristics are challenges every data point, decides based on gut feeling. Persuader strategy, establish credibility with endorsements from someone the CEO trusts. Use buzzwords like grasp, power, suspect, trust. And examples for this are co-presents with trusted COO, emphasizes information sources credibility, strokes CEO's ego. You have probably seen this case study like this. And next is grounds argument in real world. So next style is of decision making is followers. And decision maker's characteristic is relies on own or others past decisions to make current choices. Okay. And persuaders strategy is use testimonials to prove low risk, present innovative yet proven solutions. Okay. So followers are late adopters and they rely on own or others past decisions to make current choices. So what persuader can do is use testimonials to prove low risk, present innovative yet proven solutions, use buzzwords like expertise, similar to, innovate, previous. So what persuader can do is use testimonials to prove low risk, present innovative yet proven solutions. Examples are highlights case studies from other industries but notes we could be the first in our industry to do this. Okay, omits failed restructuring through though retains information in case CEO requests it. Present three restructuring options. Uses multiple references to steer CEO towards her preferred choice. Emphasize options affordability. Next style is controller. So decision makers' characteristics are unemotional, analytical, abhors, I don't know what is this, ABHORS, abhors uncertainty, and only implements own ideas. So what persuader can do is present highly structured arguments, make listener own the idea, avoid aggressive advocacy, use buzzwords like facts, reason, power, just do it. Examples are over several months continually sends CEO customer reports, marketing studies, financial projections. Emphasizes data highlighting company's problem, identifies data contradiction, letting CEO analyze them, waits for CEO to request meeting after large customer defects. In this article, okay, so waits for CEO to request meeting after large customer defects. So the last one is waits for CEO to request meeting after large customer defects. Okay, so the main thing in controller example is emphasize data highlighting company's problem and sending reports, studies, and projections to CEO. Okay, so in this article, we describe each of the five decision making styles in detail. This information is intended to be neither exhaustive nor definitive, and most executives will exhibit only some of the traits we list. Nevertheless, knowing the general characteristics of different styles, okay, this information is intended to be neither exhaustive nor definitive, and most executives will exhibit only some of the traits we list. Nevertheless, knowing the general characteristics of different styles can help you better tailor your presentations and arguments to your audience. Okay, so to be neither exhaustive nor definitive, and most executives will exhibit only some of the traits we list. Nevertheless, knowing the general characteristics of different styles can help you better tailor representation and arguments to your audience. Unfortunately, many people fail in this regard. In our experience, more than half of all sales presentations are mismatched to the decision maker style. Specifically, close to 80% of the sales presentations focus on skeptics and controllers, but those two groups accounted for just 28% of the executives we surveyed. Okay, so 80% of the presentations focus on skeptics and controllers, but those two groups account for only 28% of the executives we surveyed. To investigate the various subtleties of the five decision making styles, we present the following hypothetical situation in each of the subsequent sections devoted to explain the categories. We'll use this tale to demonstrate how our fictional protagonist should best argue her case to her CEO. Okay, so we present the following hypothetical situation. Each of the subsequent section devoted to explaining these categories will use this tale to demonstrate how our fictional protagonist should best argue her case to her CEO. So we have another table, 5 styles of decision making and the ways to influence each. In our research, we found that executives typically have a default style of decision making that lands them in one of these 5 distinct categories, that are charismatic, thinkers, skeptics, followers, and controllers. From January 1999 to June 2001, we and our colleagues at Miller Williams surveyed 1,684 executives to study their decision making processes. The participants were from a range of industries, including automotive, retail, and high tech, and were interviewed by email, in person, or over the telephone. The participants described the decision making tendencies for our researchers, for instance, how long it took them to make a decision, their willingness to make a choice that might be or that might have negative consequences, their desire for others to educate them about the issues involved, and so on. Okay, so took them to make a decision, their willingness to make a choice that might have negative consequence. Okay, so their willingness to make a choice that might have a negative consequence. How long it took them to make a decision, their willingness to make a choice that might have negative consequences, the desire for others to educate them about the issues involved, and so on. We performed a cluster analysis of the data and found that the executives' behavior fell into 5 groupings described as below. The accuracy of the survey report results reported in this article, for example, that 25% of the executives were interviewed were charismatics, is plus or minus 2.9%. For many of the prominent CEOs, examples cited, the categorizations are based on our first-hand observations and experiences with those executives. Other categorizations are based on secondary sources, including media accounts. So we have 5 things that we'll discuss, that is description, typical characteristics, prominent examples, buzzwords to use, and bottom line, and these 5 decision making styles. So first one is, okay, so first we'll read description for all of these. Descriptions for charismatics are: charismatics account for 25% of all executives we polled. They are easily intrigued and enthralled by new ideas, but experience has taught them to make final decisions based on balanced information and not just emotions. Thinkers account for 11% of the executives we surveyed and can be the toughest executive to persuade. They are impressed with arguments that are supported by data. They tend to have a strong aversion to risk and can be slow to make a decision. Skeptics account for 19% of the executives we polled. They tend to be highly suspicious for every data point presented, especially any information that challenges their worldview. They often have an aggressive, almost combative style and are usually described as take charge people. Okay, so skeptics tend to be suspicious of every data point, especially in information that challenges their worldview. They often have an aggressive, almost combative style and are usually described as take charge people. Followers account for 36%. Okay, that is highest. Followers account for 36% of the executives we surveyed. They make decisions based on how they have made similar choices in the past or on how others trusted executives have made them. They tend to be risk averse. Controllers account for 9% of the executives we interviewed. They abhor uncertainty and ambiguity, and they will focus on the pure facts and analytics of an argument. Okay, so the highest number or highest percentage of people were followers, then charismatics, then skeptics, then thinkers, and then controllers. So, typical characteristics of charismatics are enthusiastic, captivating, talkative, and dominant. For thinkers, it's cerebral, intelligent, logical, academic. For skeptics, it's demanding. Okay, so let me emphasize on each word that is written. So, for charismatic, typical characteristics are enthusiastic, captivating, talkative, and dominant. And thinkers' typical characteristics are cerebral, intelligent, logical, academic. Skeptics' typical characteristics are demanding, disruptive, disagreeable, rebellious. Typical characteristics of followers are responsible, cautious, brand driven, bargain conscious. And for controllers, typical characteristics are logical, unemotional, sensible, detail oriented, accurate, and analytical. Okay. Personally, as much as I have read this book, I would love to be part of controllers. That is 9% of the executives that were interviewed. So, prominent examples for charismatics are okay, so we have names of some people. I don't think it's really much important. So, we'll move to buzzwords to use while presenting in front of them. So, for charismatics, it is results, proven, actions, show, watch, easy, clear, focus. For thinkers, it is quality, academic, think, numbers, numbers, intelligent, plan, expert, proof. For skeptics, it's feel, grasp, power, action, suspect, trust, demand, and disrupt. And buzzwords for followers are innovate, expedite, expertise, similar to a previous. I think innovate should also come to charismatics because they are enthralled by new ideas. And buzzwords for controllers are details, facts, reasons, logic, power, handle, physical, grab, just do it. And bottom line for charismatics is when trying to persuade a charismatic, okay, so we have just a final mouth of word you can say. So, when trying to persuade a charismatic, fight the urge to join in his excitement, focus the discussion on results, make simple and straightforward arguments, and use visual aids to stress the feature and benefit your okay, and use visual aids to stress the features and benefits of your proposal. Have lots of data ready. Thinkers need as much information as possible, including all pertinent market research, customer surveys, case studies, cost benefit analysis, and so on. They wanted to understand all perspectives of a given situation. And for skeptics, you need as much credibility as you can garner. If you haven't established enough clout with a skeptic, you need to find a way to have it transferred to your prior to or to undo or okay, I need to read it again. So for skeptics, you need as much credibility as you can garner. If you haven't established enough clout with a skeptic, you need to find a way to have it transferred to you prior to or during the meeting, for example, by gaining an endorsement from someone the skeptic trusts. And followers tend to focus on proven methods, references, and testimonials, and big persuading factors. They need to feel certain that they are making the right decision, specifically that others have succeeded in similar initiatives. Okay, so followers tend to focus on proven methods, references, and testimonials, and are big persuading factors. Okay, so these things are big persuading factors like references, testimonials, and proven methods. They need to feel certain that they are making the right decision, specifically that others have succeeded in similar initiatives. And for controllers, your arguments need to be structured and credible. The controller wants details, but only if presented by an expert. Okay, so your argument need to be structured and credible. The controller wants details, but only if presented by an expert. Don't be too aggressive in pushing your proposal. Often your best bet is to simply give him the information he needs and hope that he'll convince himself. Okay, so we don't have to be aggressive. He wants details, but only if presented by an expert, and arguments need to be structured and credible. And often your best bet is to simply give him the information he needs and hope that he will convince himself. So this was a short table again. So we have read 7 pages so far of this book, Harvard Business Review's 10 must reads on communication. Okay, so it was quite nice reading this book. Got a new perspective that thinkers and okay, so decision makers are broadly categorized into 5 types: charismatic, thinkers, followers, skeptics, and controllers. Okay, I remember all that. And so we need to persuade in different way to different person. So that was all until I read, and it was a bit more in detailed. Quite interesting book. We'll continue this in next video. That was all for today. Good night. Jai Hind.